Starting off at number 10 now, we have Cressy. Cressy is said to be a mysterious, eel-like creature that lurks in the waters of Crescent Lake in Newfoundland and Labrador. Stories of Cressy date back to native Canadian legends, which refer to it as the pond devil or swimming demon. Their fears were also held by European settlers who arrived at the lake during the early 20th century. Since then, there have been dozens of sightings of Cressy, with one report saying it could be as much as 15 feet long. Next up at number 9 now, we have the St. Louis Ghost Train. In the town of St. Louis in Saskatchewan lies the village of St. Louis. There you can find an old abandoned train track. Now many of the locals there have reported seeing strange floating lights moving along the train track during the night. Others have said that a ghost train will appear on the track looking just like the ones from the 19th century. Another story is that the ghost of a workman who died during the track's construction will appear at night. At number 8 now, we have the Forbidden Plateau. This plateau in Western Canada has long been regarded as a mysterious place. The native Canadians would hide their families in the forested plateau during wars with other tribes. One day the warriors returned to find their family had disappeared. They believe that evil spirits took them away and they vowed to never step foot there again, earning it the name of the Forbidden Plateau. Many people have taken this story to heart and stay clear of the eerie presence there. Next up at number 7 now, we have Young Teaser. This was an American ship that was destroyed in the War of 1812. It was wrecked in Nova Scotia, where some people believe its ghost can still be seen today. People swear they have seen the Teaser light, a fiery glow of a flaming ship near the site of the explosion. Accounts began in the late 19th century, and since then many people have said that the ship appears on the 27th of June, the day it sank. Others have gone even further and said the ship also holds the ghosts of the sailors who died in the explosion, forced to relive their deaths forever. At number 6 now, we have Christie Mansion. It's now Regis College in Toronto, but Christie Mansion used to be the home of William Mellis Christie, a successful businessman in the city. His son Robert inherited the mansion and set up a secret chamber for his mistress. She lived there for many years until Robert's affections for her began to wane. Eventually she was said to have hung herself in room 29. Ever since then, people have said the room is cursed. Legend says that if you enter room 29 by yourself at night, the door will swing shut by itself and you'll be trapped there forever, just like the ghost of the mistress. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Peggy's Cove. On a rocky outcrop in Nova Scotia, you can find a lonely lighthouse. The story goes that in 1800, a woman named Peggy washed up on the rocks there after being shipwrecked. Tragically, her children all drowned. Peggy went on to marry one of the locals and lived on that cove. She would often walk along the rocks at night, calling out to them in her grief. One night, her husband went out with her and danced on the rocks with her to cheer her up. He lost his footing though and slipped, sending him into the rocks, which killed him. Soon after, in absolute grief, she jumped off the same rocks and ended her life. Visitors swear that on a dark, stormy night, you can see the ghost of a woman in a blue dress standing at the edge of the rocks, ready to jump. Next up at number 4 now, we have John Troyer. By all accounts, he might be the closest thing Canada has to a witch hunter. He was born into an Amish family in America before relocating to Ontario in Canada. He was a doctor who was terrified of witches. Legend says that he would stalk witches in the woods there until they led him to their den. He would then steal their broomsticks for personal transport. He would also set up actual witch traps to capture them. Now, whether or not you believe the whole broomstick or witches thing, there is evidence of John Troyer's traps, which are essentially human-sized bear traps. Coming at number 3 now, we have the Dungarvan Whooper. This is a famous ghost story coming from New Brunswick and dating back to the late 19th century. According to legend, a young Irish cook called Ryan worked at a lumberjack camp. While the other lumberjacks were out one day, the boss killed Ryan. When they returned, he told them Ryan just got sick and died suddenly. They buried him some distance from the camp. However, a loud whooping sound kept them awake. The whooping got so loud that they fled the camp, convinced it was Ryan's vengeful ghost. In the years since then, many people have reported the whooping sound that can be heard in the woods as Ryan seeks vengeance on the living. Next up at number 2 now, we have the legend of Rose La Tulipe. This is a French-Canadian legend that dates back to the 18th century. There are more than 200 different versions of the legend, but they mostly share the same theme. Rose La Tulipe was a young girl who loved to dance. On the night of Mardi Gras, a stranger appeared at her house and danced with her until midnight. At that moment, he was revealed to be the devil. She tried to escape, but it was too late. The devil took Rose back to hell, where she remains to this day, dancing with her at his whim. And finally, number 1 now, we have Oak Island. Legend says that treasure can be found on Oak Island in Nova Scotia. Since the 19th century, people have been convinced the treasure there includes the likes of Marie Antoinette's jewels and even missing Shakespeare manuscripts. A number of people have died trying to search for this treasure. The legend all began with the discovery of a large pit which seems to be man-made. It's almost 200 feet deep at one point and has been protected by booby traps which have killed a number of explorers. There are even underground channels that lead to the beach over 500 feet away. Treasure hunters are convinced that all of this must have been built to hide treasure from hunters hundreds of years ago. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Wyoming incident. According to internet legend, this was a broadcast hack that happened in 2008, affecting a number of communities in the town of Niobrara in Wyoming. Their regular news show was interrupted with this.
Preparation for the 2008 general election. Republican President Jackson.
Over the next 6 minutes or so, viewers were shown text messages and strange visuals with audio snippets playing over them. Every 10 to 15 seconds a message would appear announcing that this was a special presentation. The text would say things like, "You will see such pretty things," and "You are ill, we just want to fix you," and "What hides in your mind?" Now that last question was later answered with the chilling message of, "We have already seen it." What was even stranger was that people reported having a physical reaction to the footage. This included vomiting, hallucinations, and headaches. Others said that the frequencies played made viewers' eyeballs vibrate and create visual hallucinations. I'm glad we didn't show the whole clip then. Next up at number 9 now, we have Max Headroom. Now this is perhaps the most famous one on the list. Maybe some of you guys have seen it. On the evening of November 22nd, 1987, many people were enjoying an episode of Doctor Who on Chicago WTTW Channel 11. For those Who fans out there, the episode was Horror of Fang Rock. Anyway, the broadcast was interrupted by a signal intrusion. Suddenly, viewers saw an unknown person wearing a Max Headroom mask and sunglasses. Max Headroom was a TV character from a show in the mid-80s. The imposter hijacked the broadcast for 90 seconds in which he rambled about Coca-Cola, the TV series Clutch Cargo, and WGN anchor Chuck Swirsky. To be honest, even with subtitles, it's quite difficult to make out what's being said. At the time, an FCC engineer said that the perpetrators would face a maximum $10,000 fine, up to a year in prison, or both. It's been over 30 years since the event though, and the culprits have never been caught. Coming in at the number 8 spot now, we have Vrillon. This is a strange one from 1977. During a regular news show on Southern Television, there was a broadcast interruption just after 5 PM on November 27th. After some static and visual warping, a voice made this announcement.
This is the voice of Vrillon, representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command, speaking to you.
That person, calling themselves Vrillon, claimed to be an alien commander from an intergalactic association. The disembodied voice spoke for about 6 minutes. The main message was a warning to all humans to put down our weapons of war and to enter a new age of Aquarius. Then, and only then, would we make it to the next level of evolution.
Suck your energy from you, the energy you call money, and we'll put it to evil areas, giving you worthless dross in return.
Moving on to number 7 now, we have Playboy. I'm sure I don't need to explain to you guys what Playboy is, and if I do, I probably shouldn't. Needless to say, its late night TV shows have been very popular for many, many years. It's one of those channels where you wouldn't expect to see much religious talk, shall we say. However, that's exactly what you would have seen if you tuned into the channel on September 6, 1987. Someone interrupted the broadcast that night and displayed a quote from the Bible. I wonder how that went down with the Playboy viewers. The Bible verses were taken from Exodus and Matthew and read, "Thus saith the Lord thy God, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." The white text and black background appeared during a movie that Playboy had on called 3 3 daughters, and a number of viewers phoned in to ask what was going on. Police were able to trace the signal though, and 3 years later a man called Thomas Haney was identified as the culprit. Next up at number 6 now, we have the nuke. Okay, for this one I want you guys to do a bit of imagining now. I want you to imagine you're just chilling at home, just watching a channel that's showing beautiful scenery, live, it's playing relaxing music, that sort of thing, and then you see this. Yeah, that looked a lot like a nuke, and people in Czechoslovakia thought so too when this appeared on a TV show called Panorama in June 2007. The show usually just showed scenic footage of the Czech countryside to attract tourists to Prague and the surrounding area. When the camera appeared to show a nuclear bomb exploding during its morning broadcast, all hell broke loose. Some people who lived in the area started trying to leave before the radiation spread, others were contacting the government asking what to do. The government received so many panic calls that they had to issue an official statement confirming that Prague had not been bombed. It turns out that the footage was created as a performance piece by a group called Zathoven. I'm sure their artistic message is appreciated by some people out there, but maybe not the ones who thought they were actually having to flee for their lives. Coming in at the number 5 spot now, guys, we have The Old Couple. This is a really strange one that occurred in July 2007 during regular broadcasting on ABC's affiliate channel WJLA. This image appeared on the screen. Now to this day, nobody is exactly sure what this picture is of. Clearly, it's 2 faces, one of them is smiling and one of them looks quite concerned. The faces look like they've been computer generated. Now to me, it looks like something out of a 90s video game. This creepy image stayed on the screen for several seconds with no sound before completely vanishing. Many people said there was a dark meaning to all of this, that this was no ordinary interruption. The cable company in charge of the broadcast said there was a programming mix-up from an advertisement for the Oprah Winfrey Show. That seemed to satisfy most people, but things took a turn when videos of the event were all removed from YouTube due to restricted access. To this day, I still couldn't find any clips of this on YouTube. All that has survived is this image and the questions that come with it. Coming at number 4 now, we have War of the Worlds. Have you guys ever seen the War of the Worlds movie with Tom Cruise? I really like that movie, I'm not gonna lie. But did you know where the title for that movie came from? In 1938, future filmmaking legend Orson Welles created a radio drama based on H.G. Wells' novel The War of the Worlds. It was made to sound like a genuine news broadcast about aliens from Mars invading Earth. If you guys were to hear it on the radio today, you might think, oh, this is obviously a piece of written drama, it's not real. Well, back in 1938, on the eve of World War II, it was a very different time. Many people listening to the broadcast missed the introduction where it clearly states that the following is a piece of radio drama, and they thought it was totally real. This is what they heard.
About 20 yards to my right. Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill.
Now, according to legend, some people were so convinced that America was being invaded by Martians that they fled their homes in a panic. In the following days, there was an outcry for broadcasters to be regulated to stop this thing kind of happening ever again. That failed, and the piece went down in history as one of the most famous pieces of radio drama ever, and possibly one of the greatest pranks of all time. Next up at number 3 now, we have Handy Manny. Some of our North American viewers may have grown up watching this kids show. The animated TV series follows Manny, a repairman with talking tools. It's fun, it's educational, they sing, you get the idea. Handy Manny is also famous though for a shocking broadcast interruption which occurred on May 1st, 2007. Viewers of the show in Lincroft, New Jersey had their episode interrupted by a clip from an adult movie. Yeah. Say no more. Many of the other interruptions we've talked about usually last for 10, 15, 30 seconds. The adult film clip on Handy Manny went on for several minutes. Naturally, people wanted an explanation. Thousands of kids must have seen this. Comcast was the network that was responsible for the intrusion, or at least they should have been the ones to stop it from happening. They didn't have an answer for why it happened, and over a decade on now, they still don't. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Mayday. On January 3rd, 2007, Channel 7 in Australia was airing a Canadian documentary called Mayday, which features cases of air disasters. At some point during the broadcast, things got strange. The visuals continued as normal, but the audio started repeating a single phrase on a loop. One quick-thinking YouTuber uploaded this video of the event. Many people think that the voice is that that of a man from America's deep south saying the phrase, "Jesus Christ, help us all, Lord." See what you think. That went on for an astonishing 6 minutes before everything returned to normal. Many people wanted answers, but Channel 7 were very evasive. They denied that there had been an intrusion, but also disputed what the clip was actually saying. They claimed the voice said, "Jesus Christ, one of the Nazarenes." The fact that so many people disagree with that has only added fuel to the fire that something very strange happened that day. And finally, number 1 now, we have Coast to Coast AM. That's the name of this talk show run by Art Bell. He was used to strange calls on his show, but things got even stranger on September 12, 1997. That night, Art got a call from a guy who claimed to have been an employee at the mysterious Area 51 base, where conspiracy theorists say the US Air Force contained and studied aliens and their crashed spacecraft. The caller sounded terrified and claimed that they were coming for him and that he didn't have much time to share with the world what he knew about Area 51. He talked about extra-dimensional beings who are not what they appear to be, that they have infiltrated the US military and are now taking over.
Okay, well, what we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra-dimensional beings.
The caller began to sound more erratic and panicked. Finally, he started talking about how governments are trying to get human populations down to a manageable number so that they're easier to control. Just after this, the line went dead when the power cut out at the station. By the time they got the backup generators running, the caller was gone. Conspiracy theorists say that it was more than a coincidence that the caller was cut off and never heard from again just when he began to spill the beans on secret government activity. What do you guys think?
Coming in at number 10, we have Bloody Mary. Most of us will know the legend of Bloody Mary. She is a mirror-dwelling ghost that is said to appear when her name is chanted again and again as you stare into the reflection in the mirror. The origins of Bloody Mary go way back in old folklore, when ye olde women would invoke the ghost of Bloody Mary to show them a glimpse of their future husband's face. Things could go south if they saw a grim reaper or a skull in the mirror instead. It would mean that they would likely die before they got the chance to marry. In modern times, the legend goes that if you summon Bloody Mary, she appears as a witch-looking woman. If she is angry with you, she'll scratch out your eyes, steal your soul, drink your blood, all of the dark stuff. I'm sure you'll know loads of people who played Bloody Mary as a kid and maybe they got freaked out and convinced themselves that they saw something, but honestly, I never heard of anyone actually getting their eyes scratched out. The mirror ghost is a popular urban legend across the world. In Japan, they have something very similar in the form of Hanako-san. Coming in at number 9, we have the Ghost Pushers of Gravity Hill. In almost every ghostly urban legend video I have done, especially those in the United States, there has been a phenomena of a car being pushed up a hill by some kind of otherworldly being. This story tends to involve a car accident in that very same spot and helpful ghosts who want to save you. One example of the legend will be, say, on a rail track. The legend will say that in this very spot 37 years ago, a bus filled with kids died when it got struck on the tracks. Now, if you park the car there these days and wait, your car will miraculously be pushed over the tracks by helpful tiny dead kid hands. Creepy. Too far? Other versions take place on hills where cars have rolled backwards and caused fatal accidents, only for ghosts to remain in that very same spot. There are legends like these literally all over the world. There's Confusion Hill in California, Magnetic Mountain in Canada, Moonbee in Australia, the Magic Route of France, Hangman's Hill in Essex, UK, so on and so forth. They're literally everywhere. Generally speaking, naysayers will claim that these so-called phenomenon are a trick of the light, like water appearing to run uphill. Coming into number 8, we have walking on gravestones. Have you ever felt a shiver unexpectedly? Well, folklore and urban legend have said that if this happens to you, someone has walked on your gravestone. This suggests that somewhere there's a future in which you're dead and buried, but somehow you feel it right now. The urban legend also suggests that we should never step on another person's grave for this very reason. We may send a shiver down someone's spine or anger their spirit, which may just follow us beyond their final resting place. Honestly, beyond that, It's just kind of disrespectful to step on someone's grave. Coming into number 7, we have the ghost train. A classic ghost train. I'm not talking about the fairground ride, although since Goosebumps there has also been a lot of haunted ride urban legends. When I say ghost train, I mean the ghost of an actual train thundering at breakneck speed only to disappear out of sight. Or perhaps strange headlights in the distance near an old abandoned track, or a smell of a steam engine and a puff of smoke coming from nowhere. There are thousands of ghost train legends. The St. Louis Lights, Stockholm's Silver Pylon, Abraham Lincoln's funeral train, and more. Okay, next up I will see your ghost train and raise you a scary ghost ship. Coming into number 6, we have the Flying Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman is the most famous of the ghost ship urban legends, and it dates back to the 1700s, a high time for seafaring. It refers to a doomed Dutch man of war ship. Tales of the Flying Dutchman are ingrained in seafaring lore, a lot like that of the Kraken. Many sailors have reported seeing a phantom boat emitting a bright light on a stormy night, and it is a bad omen for seafarers. It's become a very loathsome superstition. The Flying Dutchman has regularly been spotted, famously once by King George V of the UK. Some say that they've spotted the ship in the air, hence the name the Flying Dutchman. Explanations include mirages, looming refraction, and simply hallucinations from fatigued sailors. Ooh, I love number 5. We have a theatre ghost. There's always a blooming theatre ghost, isn't there? Old theatre buildings absolutely always come replete with a ghoul. Is it because of the high drama of the theatre? Does it leave an imprint on the building? Or is it because imaginations are high in theatrical settings? Usually urban legends of theatre ghosts go as such. The spirit of a former performer who either died on stage or in a brawl at stage door haunts the theatre for the rest of time. The ghost is seen by actors on stage as they look out to the audience, or they're felt by patrons who sit down, only to feel a sudden rush of cold air as they go by. I personally love a good theatre ghost story. There is the Phantom of the Opera, who isn't actually dead. The many ghosts of the Theatre Royal Drury Lane in London, one of the oldest theatres in the world. We've got the Wailing Woman of Wellington's St. James Theatre. Judy Garland is even said to haunt the Palace Theatre in New York. Theatre ghosts are always blamed for mischief too. Lights turning on and off, props flying about backstage, things going wrong on stage. Theatre ghosts are usually tricksters and agents of chaos. Honestly, I could stand here all day talking about theatre ghosts. Maybe we should do a top 10 scary theatre ghost stories list. I'd really like that. Coming into number 4, we have the Vanishing Hitchhiker. The Vanishing Hitchhiker is a classic ghost urban legend. In each of the stories, a driver picks up a person thumbing for a lift. They drive them a little way, something spooky and mysterious is said, and then the person in question vanishes. Often, they leave a little clue behind them as to who they might have been. The driver then does a bit of research and finds out that the passenger died along that very stretch of road X numbers of years ago, sometimes to that very day. Spooky. This is such a classic urban legend that most cities have a story like this. In Chicago, for example, they have the Vanishing Hitcher Resurrection Mary. You can hear more about her in our Chicago Urban Legends videos, one of my favorites I've done this year. In Japan, a similar phenomenon is reported with the alleged ghosts of tsunami victims. Cab drivers in Inshinomaki have reported ghost passengers. Do ghosts like cars, or are the vanishing hitchers stuff of legends? Coming into number 3, we have shadow people. Shadow people are popular ghost sightings, and we actually did a whole top 10 on this. Some people have described scary shadows as black mass ghosts, negative imprints left on the world from angry spirits. So many towns and villages across the entire world have reported shadow sightings, with some cultures and tribes believing they are demonic spirits. One of the most famous shadow people sightings include the Dark Watchers of Santa Lucia, dark featureless shadows wearing hats and carrying walking sticks that appear silent and watching in the distance of the Santa Lucia Mountains. Recently, a black cloud was spotted over a mall in Zambia that some people were claiming was a shadow ghost, or a dementor. Was a shadow ghost the contents of our number 2? We have the Ghost in a Jar. The Ghost in a Jar is one of my favourite ghostly urban legends forever. While there have been many stories of spirits being trapped in objects, the ghost in a jar story went viral and inspired imaginations across the world. The story goes that in 2003, TJ101 of Arkansas listed a jar containing, I quote, a black thing. The lister said they dug up the jar near a church in the 1980s, and since then they had been plagued by a black shadow. The jar is painted black and red on the inside and is also covered in strange symbols. If the jar is so creepy, why did it take the owner 20 years to get rid of it? I don't know, but the listing went viral anyway, and somehow the ghost in a jar sold for nearly $51,000 and since has been the stuff of legends. The legend was so widespread and popular, it even became a Rick and Morty character.
Thanks, Ghost in a Jar. You always were good at pointing out potentially obscure comedy.
I feel like the need for a 15-year update on this. Does someone have that ghost in a jar? How does this story end? I need more information. Finally, coming into number 1 of our top 10 scary ghost urban legends, we have the legend of the White Lady. My, if I had $1 for every White Lady ghost I had read about, well, I'd have enough dollars to buy a pretty convincing White Lady costume and go around spooking people and making them think that I myself am a ghost. Anyway, White Lady ghosts are popular ghost tropes and usually have some kind of tragic background of love and loss and searching associated with them. I guess the ghost being in white represents some kind of woeful purity and something unfulfilled. Many are depicted wearing wedding dresses. There are countless tales of White Lady ghosts across the world. In Canada, she is a war widow who threw herself over a waterfall in Quebec City when her lover never came home. In California in the United States, she haunts Calico Ghost Town, a place I actually visited last Christmas. In the Czech Republic, she's the spirit of a cursed wife who haunts a castle. In the UK, she also haunts a castle and has a bounty of hidden treasure. In Malta, she wanders a forest in her wedding dress, and in Germany, disturbing her will get you killed. In Asia, White Lady apparitions are usually much less romantic and far more malevolent and vengeful.